There will be a unique split screen in America on Monday. As Donald Trump is inaugurated, we will also be honoring the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Bernice King, the daughter of the late civil rights leader, says Americans need to pay attention to Trump's words during his swearing in, while also celebrating her father's birthday, arguing, quote, "This is not the time for ignorance." Bernice King joins us now. She is the CEO of the Martin Luther King Jr. Center for Nonviolent Social Change.
Dr. King, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
In your last, I've been seeing everything you're posting online and whatnot, and the speeches you've been giving, and it made me think about something that your father said in one of the last interviews that he did in 1967. It was actually an NBC interview. He did it at Ebenezer down in Atlanta, and he quoted Frederick Douglass, as he has many times before, and he said that one thing we knew in the South is that freedom is not given, it's won. And he talked about the fact that that justice is won by not just fighting the battles that you know you can win, but being willing to fight the battles that you know you could even possibly lose. That's where justice really is, and that's where the fight is. And you have really, I think, been encouraging people to sit in that space, to not lean back and check out, but to lean forward and lean in and be vigilant and continue to do the work. Do I have that right?
You have it absolutely right. And part of my greatest encouragement is my mother's words, who said, struggle is a never-ending process. Freedom is never really won. You earn it and win it in every generation, which indicates that we have to always remain vigilant, no matter who is in office, from the federal level to the state and the municipal level. We have a responsibility to the freedom struggle. Every generation does. And it's not going to be easy. There's going to be some very difficult days ahead, as Daddy said, his last words out of his mouth, the mountaintop speech. It's going to be very challenging. But I think it's wonderful that this occurs on the King holiday, the inauguration, because it reminds us of King. It points us back to King. It says, when we move forward, you all, we got to do it in the spirit of King. And that's why the King Center has as its theme this year, Mission Possible, protecting freedom, justice, and democracy in the spirit of Nonviolence 365, which is Kingian nonviolence, is taught and demonstrated by my father.
Let's talk about what Mission Possible looks like. Here is Vice President Harris talking about how we define a win. Take a listen.
Our definition of the win is a definition that takes us over a period of time. We must be strong, and that whatever the outcome of any particular moment, we can never be defeated. Our spirit can never be defeated, because when that happens, we won't win.
Dr. King, what do you say to those Americans who do, in fact, feel defeated going into Monday?
Look, I say to all of us, we come from ancestors who faced very dark, difficult, challenging, maybe very evil times, but they overcame. I think that's why the song of the movement was "We Shall Overcome," because they were drawing strength from their ancestors. And they were also looking forward to a mission that they were determined to get to. And so, you know, we have to stay focused on the goal, the mission, not get sidelined by whatever the challenges are. But the greatest part of it is we have to strategize. We've been missing the strategy. We've been missing the spirit of Dr. King. Many people talk about doing the work of Dr. King, but I always ask, are you doing it in the spirit of Dr. King? In the spirit of Dr. King is nonviolence. And nonviolence is not just a posture, it's a mindset. For us, we define it as a love-centered way of thinking, speaking, acting, and engaging that leads to personal, cultural, and societal transformation. So it works on you first. You have to be in the right frame of reference to fight these injustices so that you don't become like the unjust.
You know, I think it's interesting in listening to you, Ms. King. I'm imagining two views of this. One is a President-elect Kamala Harris speaking to the nation on Dr. King's birthday at her inauguration versus Donald Trump speaking to the nation on Dr. King's birthday, and I have that flashback to the last time Donald Trump spoke in such a way, where he laid out this dystopian view of the country. And then I bring into this conversation the words of Joe Biden in his farewell to the nation, in which he talked about planting seeds. Let's take a listen.
It will take time to feel the full impact of all we've done together. But the seeds are planted, and they'll grow and they'll bloom for decades to come.
So as a nation, we have an opportunity to plant seeds. We could have planted seeds with Kamala Harris. We could have planted seeds with Donald Trump. We had those choices to make. When that moment occurs during this speech on Monday with the president-elect, what seeds do you want to see planted that can grow in that garden, in that space that Dr. King envisioned for us?
Are you speaking from his speech or just period?
I mean, just period, because we don't know what his speech is going to be.
Talked about, we sure don't.
Right? No. I understood, but I'm saying from not so we don't know what Trump is going to say necessarily, but I'm just saying this idea of planting seeds. That's really going to be the mission in front of us, regardless of the words of the man, because it does come back to what we do. To your point, what we do. How do we live out that spirit of Dr. King, the nonviolent spirit, but also the activist spirit?
Well, I think all of us have to continue on a daily basis to ask a fundamental question, and that is, what is required of me in this season? And it changes per season depending on what we're faced with. Am I willing to make the necessary sacrifices? And that's really important to understand, because they made sacrifices in my father's movement. They were willing to pay the price no matter what. No matter what came, my father said, I'm determined to create this just society. And we too have to decide whether we want to do whatever it takes, not in a violent way, but in a nonviolent way. And then we have to remember something he charged us with in 1968, right? In that last speech, he said, maintain unity. And so it is important that we come out of our silos in this moment, because things grow because there's some people who are continuing to water those things. That's why we can't sit out. So the seeds that have already been planted for freedom, justice, and democracy, the sacrifices of some people previously, even in this generation, who have planted seeds, have to be watered. Because as my father said, one of the tragedies still of human history is the children of darkness are often more determined than the children of light. And I'm on a mission to prove the opposite, that it's the children of light that are more determined and zealous than the children of darkness. And so we have to continue with that zeal and that determination no matter what.